Hey everybody, so my husband Ryan and I, we've been building a house for the past year and a half. And when I say that we are building a house, I mean that very, very literally. We are building the house. I know it's crazy and it has been a crazy time for us. Recently, in the past month, our project has been building the staircase. Now, we've been using a temporary plywood and temporary railing to get up and down the stairs, but now in the past month, it has been time to put in the stair treads and the railings and have everything be absolutely exact. And this process of building a staircase, it is really, really fussy. It's really, really particular. Measurements have to be checked and double checked and triple checked. And we have to make sure that the bottom of the staircase is super settled so it doesn't set off the top of the staircase in some kind of wonky direction. We have to do it slowly and with intention to make sure that each stair is settled. When we talk about being settled, for me, the feeling of unsettled, the feeling of being unsettled is just absolutely the worst. This feeling of being unstable or rocky or nomadic, like not knowing which direction I'm going. When things feel unsettled for me, it causes me anxiety and worry. And let's be honest, there's been so much here in the past 2 years that are absolutely unsettled in our lives. Schools are still unsettled. Every couple of weeks, we change tiers here in Alexandria, and it's hard to know what exactly is going on. Families are unsettled with different politics or views on how we deal with this whole COVID thing. Relationships are unsettled because we tend to take things out on the people that we love the most when things feel anxious in our own hearts. The headlines leave us feeling unsettled because it's just like the news of one terrible thing or the news of one horrible possibility and everything in between, just one after another after another. And as humans, when we are unsettled, we get these kind of physiological responses. You see, our bodies and our brains, they want to bring us back to a settled place. They want to bring us back to equilibrium. So when we're unsettled, we lose our ability to focus. We find ourselves jumping from one thing to the next and then back to the other thing. We find ourselves feeling insecure about some of the best relationships that we have. We feel on edge, or we feel like we're bubbling up in anger, ready to take something out on somebody if they just even bother us for a second. Or for some of us, when we feel unsettled, it shows up in perfectionism, where we try and control all the things that are around us in this time of unsettledness. And for a lot of us, when we feel unsettled, the things that used to bring us joy, they just don't anymore. And we start to lose interest in those things. When we feel unsettled, we don't act from our best self. Instead, we act from a place of anxiety or worry. So how do we move from anxiety to routine when things feel unsettled? Well, in the early parts of the Bible, it tells a story of this group of people called the Israelites. It's this huge tribe of God's chosen people. And through a series of events, they end up over in Egypt, where they were invited to live there among the Egyptian people. And for a long time, things were really good. And they stayed there with the Pharaoh that invited them. But then that Pharaoh died and his son took over. This second Pharaoh, Ramses II, he didn't like the Israelites as much as the first Pharaoh. And he was threatened by them. He thought they were a threat to all of his people, the Egyptians. So he had them all enslaved. And the Israelites became slaves to all the Egyptians. And it lasted long enough to the point, honestly, where the Israelites, they actually started to feel used to being slaves. They actually felt settled in their routine of being slaves, even though it wasn't great. But God heard them and wanted to free them. So God sent a man to free them from their slavery. And we know this man named Moses. And after much debate between Moses and the Pharaoh and some plagues and some blood on some doorposts, the Pharaoh finally agreed to let the Israelite people go. And they left and they went across the Red Sea and they moved into the desert, hundreds of thousands of people. And it's in the desert, it's in that unknown place where they become unsettled people. In the desert, away from all they had ever known, even though they had freedom for the first time in most of their lives, they were anxious and shook to the core about what they had just done, how they had just left this place of slavery into this unsettled wilderness. And they did what we all do when we feel this way, when we feel like we're in unsettlement. They wanted to go back to what they knew. They started to worship Egyptian gods instead of the God that had freed them from slavery. They started complaining and whining to anyone who would listen to them. And they thought maybe we should just go back to Egypt, even though that meant slavery for them and for their children. When we're unsettled, we're kind of like this boat in a sea, bouncing off rocks, getting splashed by waves, searching for and grasping for anything that could anchor us, even if those things are not good for us. In the past 2 years since COVID started, alcoholism has increased, family division has multiplied, anxiety and mental health crisis are on the rise. People are burning out, quitting their jobs, and filing for divorce. And if this is you, you are not alone in your unsettledness. You are not alone in your desire to just want things to calm down for just 1 second or to find a quick fix to your problems. I think that we are all unsettled. So it's no surprise that what God does right after the Israelites go into the wilderness after their experience in Egypt, God gives the Israelites the 10 Commandments. God gives them the roots to get them back to feel like they have some control over the chaos of their new life. God gives them something to do, something to focus on, something to put their anxiety into a routine, something to hold on to when things feel unsettled, like a baby with their blanket. When things feel out of control, something to grasp onto. And the book of Jeremiah describes this rootedness, this anchor, this routine, this settledness like this. It says, "Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They will be like a tree planted by the water that sends its roots out by the stream. It doesn't fear when the heat comes because its leaves are always green. It has no worries when a year of drought comes, and it never fails to bear fruit." My friends, when anxiety gets the better of you, find a routine. Find something to root you, something to anchor you. Root yourself to the God who's got you through all of the things that are unsettled. I want to thank you for joining me here today on the Daily Dose. If you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, I want to invite you to share and subscribe. And if you're joining us on cable access, I'm super honored you're here. I hope you'll continue to join us this week as we talk about what it means to feel unsettled.